Y'all, we live in difficult times. There's war, political unrest, the pandemic, poverty, families being torn, communities ripped by gun violence and people dying every day. Police, injustice, it's all bringing so much pain. But y'all, we can look inside our minds and we can understand who we are, become better, and do this thing like we've never done it before. But it all starts with our mental health, and I know we can do it. I believe in you because I believe in me, and I believe in us.
We always like to dress good.
We always like to dress good, but it just became more emphasized during that time. And look, that self-concept thing I think was so important. But now we move into the 90s. We might call it the golden age, the age of Pac, the age of Notorious B.I.G., the age of so many others, man. What's y'all thoughts on that, man? What's some of y'all favorite songs from that time? And obviously, how do you think it they talked about mental health issues, of course.
Okay.
First,
it's tough. The 90s is very clearly the best era of hip hop to me. I feel like I said, we had a solid blend of conscious music, of kicking music. We had cats coming in and really being individual.
Yes.
That's the era where so many, like right
Speaking
now,
of their own experiences, their own personal life.
right?
Yeah.
It's just different, and there's so many artists that had, like, in the very beginning, everybody just was kind of doing it. It was all the same. So when you had one person that come out and was different, like a LL came and was very different than like the Curtis Blow style, which almost everybody was doing. LL come along and then it's like, whoa, what is that? You got KRS come along and it's like, what is that? You got Rakim come along and it's like, what is that? You know what I'm saying? You got your Cool G's, you got Big Daddy Kane's. Like the 90s gave us, it was so many cats that just was completely different styles and what was going on. It changed so much because we talked about off camera. Nobody sounded like Busta Rhymes, and nobody has sounded like Busta Rhymes since then.
Right.
Nobody sounded like Q-Tip. Nobody has sounded like Q-Tip to this day. Like the 90s gave us so many artists that today still are dope, still are active, still had their own creative styles that adapted to the times and still are relevant today. Like we don't have that from any other era.
Yeah.
Where those are the guys who still active like that. Like the fact that Nas just dropped 6 albums in the past 3 years. Is crazy.
It's crazy.
And he dropped in the 90s. You know what I'm saying? And he out here and he doing numbers and he working with new young producers and still moving. The fact that Jay is still relevant. The fact that Bus is still relevant. Like all these cats came out of the 90s. So I think that the 90s, it ain't no beating it, bro.
There's no comparison.
It ain't no beating it, bro. It ain't no beating it. And I just think that what we saw happening there was people. It wasn't so much the message for our people. That's when I feel like it kind of became more so personal. Everybody just really speaking directly to what they had going on and what was up with them, and that's what made those different groups so impactful in the 90s.
For sure. No, I totally agree that the 90s is absolutely the golden era. And one reason being, I think, to your point about the originality in all the artists in that time frame, right? The early stages of it was really, it's founded in New York City, right?
Yeah,
New York City. So New York almost had a stronghold on rap music in the 80s.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But when you hit the 90s is when you see the West Coast influence, the South influence, the Midwest influence. Everybody, like I said, it blew up to be global at this point.
Yeah.
Got them No Limit Soldiers.
So then the sound got more diverse because
The sound got more diverse
because it wasn't just everybody looking at this one spot to pump out the sound.
Right.
All of a sudden we got Outkast.
What they say?
Ain't no other
the
outcast.
South got something to say.
You know what I'm
South
saying?
got something to say.
Yeah, like it just ain't no other outcast. Like that's the thing that I feel like more than anything is what make so many of them 90s cats stand out is that there was no imitating what they did. Everybody had their real individual sound.
And they were gonna call you out if you did take their sound. Like
Right.
it was all about the originality of it.
Like
you know?
and that's the reason that they popped so hard, because that's always gonna be the thing. When you got something that is dope and it's also not the same as everything else, it works. So that's why Wu-Tang became Wu-Tang. That's why Outkast became Outkast. Like so on and so forth. Like it's so many Tribe became Tribe.
Absolutely.
They all was so different.
And we can't forget the Fuji.
So,
You
no,
can't forget
Fugees
the
either.
Oh my God.
And like so growing up in the 90s, being in school, right? I remember how it influenced like my environment, because I went to a predominantly white school, but then as I got closer to high school, it got more diverse. So by this stage, 90s, I'm in junior high, high school, and through hip hop, like everybody kind of formed their identities on who they was gonna gravitate to. Me and my crew, we was more Wu-Tang, New York, East Coast type cats. But then in that same school, it was cats who was influenced off of Cash Money. You know what I'm saying? Or No Limit Records, the South type style of people. So I think it gave people a source to find out like, okay, this is the type of cat I'm gonna be. This is the type of swag I'm gonna have. This is what I'm gonna identify with. They speak more to what I can relate to. Like for me, Wu-Tang made it cool to be cool but smart, but street at the same time.
Right.
Like I can be street, but that don't mean because I'm street I gotta be dumb.
Right.
I can know math and science and do well in school.
Yeah.
But still don't think I'm no corny cat that you can just push up on me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
like that's the type of confidence that listening to Wu-Tang gave me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And my crew.
I see that. I respect that.
You know,
Yes, definitely.
Where some cats were who, and it's no knock because I loved all that music for the era that it was, but like the cats who was more influenced by like the down south rap, it was like, oh, we just gonna be street cats. It ain't cool. I'm gonna be on that, ignorant stuff. And it ain't cool to be smart. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Kind of like, that's how I felt like it was influenced. But
It felt like it was more celebrating the thugdom part of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, but granted, man, all Master P and them stuff, that stuff has some dope beats to it, man. Like
Absolutely.
Yeah, while having the ugliest album covers to ever exist.
What'd you say?
But they imitating them shirts now with
That's crazy,
how
bro.
they trying to bring that back?
Yes, man.
Yeah,
like it's wild. Like how it's like I seen somebody had an original one of the concert tees from Master P touring, and like it was one of the actual original shirts. The joint was selling for like $600 in the store. I'm like, ain't no way, bro. It's horribly ugly.
Right.
But these new trendy kids like, give it here, and they ain't never even heard a Master P record.
Yeah. Two artists I thought they was one from the South and one from of course, New York. I thought they had a Mystical and Ruth. Come on. Atomic DMX. I thought they had a kind of similar style.
It was just extreme energy and real aggressive. But like in that 90s, like coming out of the end of the 90s, DMX had rapping a chokehold, bro. Chokehold, bro. 2 albums in a year, dropped back to back on their heads. Like it was no games. Like his energy was unmatched. That's another one of them artists. There's not another DMX. Nobody else has that style. He was completely original, completely individual. Nobody sounded like him. Nobody delivered like him. Like it was just everything about his energy, his demeanor, his style. That's one of them artists that's like, yeah, bro, you can't replicate that.
Yeah.
But on the 90s tip, I wanted to rewind it just a little bit and highlight one influential part about the 90s hip hop, right? I feel like it's 2 parts about it, right? I feel like 90s music was known for, or was the birth of like the parental advisory sticker, right?
Okay.
That's when you started having the parental advisory, right? On CDs. And as a kid, you wanted the parental advisory CD.
Yeah.
You wanted
Walmart
to get
didn't
that.
sell 'em.
Like, yeah, Walmart didn't sell them.
Facts.
You had to go to the certain, and at that age, you had to have somebody who could almost like buying a pack of cigarettes. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, who could legally buy you. I remember
Right.
it was a parental advisory. I think it was the Loonies album. I got five on it.
Yep.
I bought that record. I just bought it. Went over to my cousin's house, and we outside playing basketball. I come back in, and it's in a trash can, ripped up. My aunt found it and tore it up. She was like, your mama wouldn't let you have this parental advisory. You know what I'm saying? You're not supposed to have this type of stuff.
That's crazy.
We don't have this type of music in my house. But it was, you know, for one, you got to talk about Luke and them in the South, because they were the group that fought in Supreme Court to be able to have music that had explicit lyrics.
Right.
You know, they went and fought so that people could be able to have their freedom of speech, you know, on record.
Which is huge, but like it's crazy that what their music was, and like the fact that they the ones that
Compared to
fought, the fact that like they the ones that fought for the freedom of speech, like so they can rap about booty,
Strip club music.
but it positively impacted everybody else to be able to speak on the real things, which is hilarious.
But see that, but I look at that as kind of controversial because it's, for me, of course, yeah, there's positive because it gave birth to so many artists that we love and that had freedom of speech. But then it's also a part of that was detrimental.
True.
Because I look at like that album that I was gonna say, the one album that I felt like in the 90s was the most, what do you feel like was the most influential album in the 90s?
That was going to be my next question.
That's a hard question, but
Yeah.
It is,
When I
bruh.
say, so you answer it your way. And then I was also thinking to like your mental health. When you had a bad day, who are you going to go home and put them headphones on, you know, and listen to?
we'll see. Yeah, that's another aspect. Of it.
Yeah. I want to hear both though.
That's a twofold question.
Yeah. What? Oh man.
So for my answer, while Watts think of his, is I feel like the most influential album in the 90s was Dr. Dre The Chronic. I feel like when that album dropped, it changed so much as far as the influence of gangster rap. You know what I'm saying? Like, because through that birthed Snoop, and you know what I'm saying, what that album did. But yeah, that really changed a whole lot, positive and negative. Because I also know if you've seen that Special Ed just did this interview on Drink Champs, and he was talking about how he felt like that album helped ruin the black community in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Because of the influence of just the high glorified street life, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And kind of birthed that into like the social norm,
Right.
you know? But when you ask me, I'll just end it. You said the most, what I used to go to was Midnight Marauders, Tribe Called Quest. Like, I could go to sleep to that album. Like, it was the most therapeutic album for me.
Thanks. All right. What about you, Watts?
I'm inclined to agree with the Chronic until I can wrap my brain around some more, but I don't disagree with what you're saying. If I'm in the 90s and I done went through something on a day, low key could go to I feel like I would go to Pac. I feel like I'd go to Pac because he just had so many of them joints that just had that feeling. Like I always felt like if I was experiencing something or really feeling the type of way, I felt like I would rather have a conversation with Pac, but I would rather listen to Big.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like I always felt like that. Like as much as I enjoy his music, like that's what it always came down to between the two of them for me. I felt like I would be able to have a crazy conversation with Pac, but I always have a better time listening to what Big was doing, skill set, lyrically wise, and ability. But yeah,
Sure.
end of that day, it's something going on. let me go ahead, cut off, keep your head up. You know what I'm saying? Like, and just be like, all right, man, it's not as bad as I. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that's where I would go to.
Pac was cold.
Yeah, to this day, I still blast "Dear Mama." And my kids be looking at me because you know
It's a tearjerker
obviously
song.
I know
Yeah.
every lyric of the song, and I think I'm like a rapper low key. And
Yeah.
they just be staring at me because I go all in with my own experiences from my childhood growing up with a single mom. And I remember for Mother's Day, the four of us got together and did like a little talent show for my mom. And we were just so excited, like, yeah, you know, singing all the Tupac songs, you know,
Right.
Dear Mama. And she was just like, but I wasn't no crackhead. I know you didn't do any drugs, Mom, but do you feel like
Right.
You don't get the sentiment. Okay, it's there.
No, Pac was
So,
poetic.
Yeah, I can definitely relate, you know, to, you know, most of his music.
Yeah, like I said, it'll definitely be a Pac joint.
You know, for me, you know, I think it really depends on like the day, because obviously I love listening to Pac because I thought he was conscientious, and also it's like I had this dual relationship with him. Like he was conscientious on some level because he spoke to things and he spoke to things really well. But at the same time, he was definitely, you know, a gangster. And I remember listening to Strictly for My Niggas, man. I'm trying to listen to it, trying to like, you know what? I can only listen to it so much. But in that same van, I could listen to Busta, you know, and I'll just, when I'm in a certain mood, I could just listen to him over and over again. I just love the way he flowed, man.
Yeah.
And
Busta.
one of the songs I think that I heard that really grabbed me about Busta was that song when he talked about what he went through as a child and his family life and how he came up, and you know he didn't see himself getting where he was, man. And I think a lot of us can hear songs like that and maybe could be encouraged by it. But at the same token, we can hear that song and say, you know, thug life is where it's at, man. But then I also in the 90s I have this love for like Arrested Development.
Ooh, come on.
When I see the little ones.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, for sure.
Playing games with the water guns and Generations of Poverty, and I ask myself why. Like, you know, it's like, you know,
first
why they
album
cry
was
912,
classic.
but no, why we
Crazy.
cry freedom. Like I hear stuff like that, and it's like, man, that spoke to another part of me, that thing, and then of course the Fugees, you know, so everybody wear the mask. I think Lakes of Hughes, where is that? You know, so Lauren
Hill.
that spoke, yeah. And then, you know, Snoop, man, I love when he first came out. The beats was just so dope, man. But Murder was the case that they gave me, like, wow.
Right.
So, man, those songs, like, it's hard to pick one, but man, those were the artists, and I think for me, many times in the 90s that really kind of influenced the way I look at rap. And I felt like I was very selective. Because some artists, like I love Tribe Called Quest, and y'all remember Diggable Planets?
Come on, now.
Man, listen,
Come on.
I'm telling you, and it's like because everybody that you name and them not like all these people we done named, none of them sounded alike.
No.
Yes, man.
And that's
Absolutely.
that's the thing.
Originality.
That's why the 90s is the best, because nobody was trying to sound like nobody. They was just making the sounds that they wanted to make, and that's
Right.
why it was so different.
Pulling from their own creative genes, man.
Exactly.
Like being an artist, a real artist.
Exactly,
You know?
a real actual artist. I mean, and don't get me wrong, everybody has influencers,
Right.
And it ain't nothing wrong with having influences, but you
Right.
still got to put yourself in it, and I think that's what get lost on a lot of forms of art today. Is that individuality is not there.
And with the artists in the 90s, when you talk about lyrics, right? Like they took real pride in being as lyrical and poetic
Facts.
as possible. So like the level of lyricism that came out in the 90s was almost like superhero-ish. Like you didn't think, the average person did not look at a rapper like a Tupac or a Big or a Jay, Nas, Busta, any of these people we naming, and think like that's just an easy, achievable thing to do.
Right.
Like this is almost like superhuman creative strength that they got right there. It's like anybody just thinking that they can step into the NBA and playing on LeBron's level.
Exactly.
You know, it was that level of talent that was there.
To be able to flow like that and go, it's definitely a superpower. You know, saying that, just going back to Black history a little bit, a lot of times when we look at even the old spirituals that, you know, the slaves used to sing. And somebody went and they put words to them, of course, actual words. This is how you sing the song. But when they actually sung the songs, each time they sung it, it was improvised and the words were different.
Wow.
That's how it was. They didn't do it always the same way. So I think about that. I think about rap and how guys like Biggie could just take, boom, give him a beat, it could just flow and bop,
Freestyle.
or Nas, and like how these guys could just flow with it. Man, it's amazing. Hey, I want to say this, and I want to ask y'all some questions. You know, one of the things I was thinking about with Notorious, which I really appreciated about him. He seemed to be so self-aware in his music. He knew who he was. He knew what his strengths was. He knew what his weaknesses was, and he put it in his music, man.
Right.
Yeah.
He talked about his flaws.
Yeah,
you
he
know,
talked about his
flaws and all.
Right. Black and ugly as ever. However, I stay Coochie down to the socks. Okay. It don't matter, bro.
You know, and build his self-confidence up like that. You know,
Right. Like that.
Like-
Man, he knew he was, man. I appreciated that about him, man. But
Like he kept it. It was definitely a level of like funky that Biggie kept it. That was crazy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Talking about getting the materials to make the fake versions of the clothes that was hot. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
sewing the alligator on your shirt, you know,
feel me?
just to look. And I've been there. I remember sewing Tommy Hilfiger on the back, Tommy Hilfiger patch on the back of my shirt just to be able to fit in, you know, to feel cool and confident in what that was. So, man, for sure.
Yeah. Let me ask y'all a question. So in the 90s, man, so gangster rap it evolved. And of course you had these factions in the East Coast, the West Coast, New York, Compton, and seems like the gangster rap, the vibe, man, really happened during that time, man. In the golden age of rap. Why y'all think that happened? What was pushing that?
I mean, honestly, it was just another one of those things that, you know, it was another sound, and it was also relatable too. It was like, for as much good as there was, you can't ignore the bad too, because it was there. The gangster, because what was happening on the West Coast, where the majority of the gangster rap was coming out of, is what they was experiencing. So, you know, the cats in New York to talk about what's happening in New York. Of course, the cats on the West gonna talk about what's happening on the West. They was dealing with them cops out there going crazy in LA, beating niggas up, like, you know what I'm saying? Like it, and what they was experiencing, what they was going through, the way crack hit, really, you know, out there and New York, like, of course you was gonna get that music. It was gonna happen, and you was gonna have those guys like,
Today was a good day.
yeah, like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Because it's the fact that they was experiencing those bad days that made Cube's song about a good day so impactful.
Yeah. Right.
You feel me? Like you had to have all those negative experiences and bad days to be able to even have that record in the first place.
Showing gratitude, just to be grateful for the small things. You
Right.
know, the dog wasn't barking. You know?
Yeah, like
Right,
yo, listen,
right.
like how messed up did life have to be for you to just be hyped that it ain't no bacon on your plate? Like what? Like, you know what I'm saying? For just the simplest things made him happy in this day. Like, bruh, I ain't have to shoot nobody. Ain't nobody shoot at me. Nobody I know got shot. Ain't nobody. The cops ain't arrest me. Ain't harass me. Ain't bother me. Like, those are things that you should just experience on a regular day anyway. But that wasn't the case. So, like, that's what made that so impactful.
And when you talk about that East Coast, West Coast beef, like, it was crazy how that exploded because, you know, both sides was just really speaking their truths about what they was going through in their respective areas. Like you said, Cube with Today Was a Good Day. He was telling you his West Coast lens on things, you know, where you had, you know, the Nas's and the J's speaking that they East Coast perspective on the things. And for some reason, we've always been like kind of like tribal by nature. So it's always like, even in amongst the city, you know, you'll have street beefs, you know, and people, I'm from this block, you from that block. And so with the whole East Coast, West Coast piece, I think it just feuded off of, you know, just personal disputes between people But then when you add in, I'm representing the whole East Coast, or I'm representing the whole West Coast, that fueled the fire. And then when corporate America once again got a hold of it,
yeah.
you know what I
They
mean?
ran
Like
with
they
it.
just exploded that into a whole frenzy of ways that they made money off of that situation. And you see what it ended up resulting in. Two lives was lost, man. Great MCs,
Right.
you know?
Which is always the weirdest thing to me
That
because it was
ended
like,
you know?
yeah, but it was like that was the peak of East Coast West Coast beef with
Pac and Big.
with two niggas both from the East Coast, which was always stupid to me. But all right, sure. And we had to lose people for it. And it's definitely the corporate hands getting into it, pushing it, because the thing is, you churn out rappers like this. They just keep coming. Like for every one rapper that gets shot, another 10 hit the studio. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that was a thing where it's like rappers were and I feel like always have been since it became a business, have always been looked at as expendable. Rather
After Tupac got killed, who was the two rappers who came up and they was like, oh, they supposed to be the new Tupacs?
No, I'm gonna be quiet because I'm gonna say something that might not be right.
Oh, I'm about to say, you talking about DMX and Ja?
There you go.
Yeah.
Those were supposed to be the new versions.
You just had two brown skin ball niggas. They was like, that's it. That's the replacement.
We'll create two more Tupacs.
Yeah,
you know what I'm
but they definitely tried it. And then Ja went, this don't work. I'm not Tupac. Let me go ahead and start singing. And that's, you know what I'm saying? And all right, cool. And DMX was like, I'm low key crazy. Just let me rap and pet my dogs, and that's cool.
But that was his mental health. It was his outlet. It was his thing. He tried it. It didn't work for him. He's like, how do I cope? What do I do? This is what I like. Let me step back into my lane.
Pretty much.
You know, and speaking of that corporate stuff, I think in America there's always been this thing to celebrate the gangster. Think about it, y'all. Think about it. The Cowboys. Think about the Al Capones and all the gangster movies, that The Godfather, all the movies, man, that's been made about gangsters. I think America has created an environment where we celebrate the gangster, man.
Absolutely.
And so rap going in that direction, it was just reinforcing the same concept of America. We've always been about gangsters, unfortunately.
Right. But it's the thing
where it was kind of like, we were unsure. We went from gangster rap, Tupac and Biggie died, then it was like the rappers started singing. You know,
definitely shifted up. It was like, hey, you know what? I don't want to get shot. Let's make different music.
Puff Daddy started with his dancing.
Puffy was like, I am okay,
that
brother.
goes to the next one. That's going
Right.
But check this out, though. Speaking of that era, man, I think one of the greatest songs that came out about grief was Crossroads, man.
Ooh, yes.
That's from Cleveland.
For sure, right. Yeah, you already know what it is. Cleveland. 216, quit playing.
That was a badge of honor to say you was from Cleveland once Bone dropped. You know?
For real.
Yeah, like that was, I mean, you know, I thought that song really spoke to the issues of grief, man. And of course, they were kind of memorializing Easy at that time, right?
Right. What's crazy about the Crossroads song, right? So that was like 95, 96. My grandfather died in 96. And my grandfather's name was Charles, right? And he had a slew of nieces and nephews.
That's my Uncle Charles.
When that line came on, I miss my Uncle Charles, y'all. I'm talking about it. Our family reunions, dog, like they would go crazy off that line. And like, I could tell for them, it was like they was really pouring out to that part. You know what I'm saying? Like they felt the line in that, man, like as a cry out, man. So yeah, that was like a real grief recovery type song.
Yeah, it was, man.
The one thing I was gonna say about the 90s too, because it's two elements. We don't want to be remiss to talk about the ladies and the female influences.
Absolutely not.
And the things that went on along that line. But then also, I think we also have to speak about how that there is definitely a level of misogynistic music and lines that came out, you know, that was embraced in a way that kind of caused some toxicity in our community, right?
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying? Like being able to like rappers like and this is music I loved and listened to, like Too Short, for instance. You know, Too Short was a huge rapper who had, you know, album
Terrible.
called Cocktails, and if you listen to the music in that, it's crazy.
Right.
But I know for a fact, and A-Ball and MJG, there's a lot of rappers, you know, UGK, Pimp C, you know what I'm saying, like, that talked about, you know, putting women in the light as hoes. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And so I feel like
Yeah, that definitely came out the 90s.
that definitely, even we talking about the Chronic and Snoop and them, right? How they talked about women too much in a way that glorified them being nothing more than just sex partners. It wasn't talking about, you know, holistic or being together. There was few rappers in that era who kind of was promoting healthy relationships.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And so I think with that being promoted so much through the music, I think that subconsciously affected how people dealt with relationships in that time frame, or how they talked about, you know, there was a whole era in the 90s, the freak nigga, right?
Oh, yeah.
The freak nigga in Atlanta, and it wasn't about no wholesome type relationships being formed. It was
Once you are
about
treated that way, you are told that you are this, then you become that same thing.
so in response to that, then you had people like Queen Latifah, right?
Yes, UNITY, Unity. Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Who was coming with music to you know, reinforce women to know that they're more than just a bitch or a hoe. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
so I think that element was some conflictingness, but then I think it was pushed way too much on the other side of that.
You know,
That's
so-
my
Here we
perspective.
are now, even though I skipped a few errors, but 2023,
Uh-oh.
our female rappers now,
Uh-oh.
total opposite.
Yeah,
Bashing
no, it's
men,
crazy.
You know? So, okay, let's.
I'm sure we'll get to that part.
Let's go back.
Yeah. So, yeah, but they definitely, the overly sexualization of African American women definitely became a very heavy part of rap. And again, the gangstery, the guns, over sexualization of women. Those are issues that we have to look at and consider when we talk about it. You know, when we think about it, a lot of us, when we were listening to rap, a lot of us, when we was writing rap, we were young and didn't really have a concept of how those things was impacting us, because we was only taken from the environment that we was already exposed to. And so we thought, even though in our uniqueness and us being different, we still was taken from the environment that we was in. So thus gangstery was gangstery. Women being womanized was normal. And so in guns and violence was all wrapped up in our culture.
Yeah.
And drugs wrapped up in our culture.
But to your earlier point, and to what Watts said earlier too, in the 90s, that there was a balance there.
Yeah.
You had that, but then you also had the Arrested Developments, the Tribe Called
Right.
Quest, the De La Souls, the Queen Latifahs, you know what I'm saying, the MC Lights, you know what I'm
Right.
saying, people who were talking about MC Light, man, with Georgie Porgy, you know what I'm saying, she was talking about domestic violence and what was going on there, but speaking more so from an uplifting standpoint, right?
Right.
So you had that balance that was even played on the radio.
Yeah,
and TV back then
Yeah, no,
So-
you can't get nothing positive on the radio today.
at all.
No.
Right.
And but back then, you know, you had that, but then you had that. So I felt like that kept us a lot more mentally stable because we had more of a balance
Than we had.
you know, in the 90s.
Yeah, now it's pretty much all one extreme or the other. And so we
Where's the other?
lost that. No, that's what I'm saying.
The other ain't even.
That's what I'm saying.
The
It's
other
pretty.
is
It's
when
pretty.
you
It
bring
pretty
out
much
your
just
own
like
music.
tilted over.
You
the-
have to.
You know what I'm saying? Like we didn't watch the needle just keep going over the boil. You know what I'm
I
saying?
mean, you
And
can't
that's-
even turn on the regular radio and the lyrics be like, oh, you know what? I
Yeah.
got little kids in the car.
Yeah. So you turn this like radio, Gucci,
Bruh.
whoa, like skip to the
Bruh.
next station, like rob this nigga. Okay, we just,
Right.
you know what, kids, we gonna just count how many red cars we see.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you can't do nothing now.
It's crazy.
Thank you for listening to this episode on hip hop and mental health. If you like this discussion, please like us and also subscribe. We're going to continue this discussion in part 3.